I am come among you to bring you the word from the annals of the people of Bnei Israel as recorded in the book of Mitch. At that time, the children of Israel, also known as Bnei Israel, worshiped God in his house in the west, where the flowers of the field bloom, where the path of green meets the lake of walnuts. Every week, week after week, on Sabbaths, on holy days, and on other special days, they would go up to the house of God in their masses to worship the Lord in joy. Bnei Israel's worship was led by Leonardo from the land of the Chileites. Leonardo took Silvana from the land of his fathers as his wife. God looked kindly upon Bnei Israel. They walked in the ways of God. They grew strong, prospered, and multiplied. It happened that the Spirit of God appeared to Leonardo and proclaimed to him, saying, "Get thee out of your adopted land, away from your home and away from your friends, and head west and south. Cross the great river Mississippi and head to the land I will show you, the land of Texans, to the banks of the river that is grand, where you will proclaim my name to the inhabitants of a new land in a new home. Your name shall be great." Leonardo and his family departed with the well wishes of Bnei Israel. There then arose a new leader for Bnei Israel, Eric, from the lands of the east, where tall towers with their heads in the sky are constructed. Eric was a man of words and important numbers. Bnei Israel continued to grow strong and prosper and multiply. After these events, the lords of the fields to the south arose and proclaimed to Bnei Israel, "At the end of 7 months, at the turn of the season, you must leave this place. Your house has become a burden to us. We can no longer sustain your presence." Despite the entreaties of Bnei Israel, the lords of the fields of the south were firm of heart and said, "You will be replaced by the people from the land of Toledo." Bnei Israel were distraught. Their prayers reached to heaven. God saw the anguish of his people. The Spirit of the Lord then rested upon Linda, the teacher of Torah, Frank, a man of the law, Jeffrey, the healer of the stiff-necked people, and the elders of the community. They responded, "Hinenu, here we are, ready to do your will." Linda, Frank, Jeffrey, and the elders proclaimed to Bnei Israel, "Do not be afraid. Trust in God. He will lead us to the promised land. Be strong and of good courage." Linda, Frank, Jeffrey, and the elders told Bnei Israel, "We will talk to the people of the near valley, the Kolamites. Perhaps they will allow us into their house." Linda, Frank, and Jeffrey descended into the valley in the west and said to the Kolamites, "We are your kin. We wish to live in your land. We will recompense you for what we consume, and we will veer neither to the right nor to the left in our dealings with you. We will be as brothers and sisters to you." The Kolamites responded, "What Bnei Israel are proposing is favorable in our eyes. Their people will be our people, and our sanctuary will be their sanctuary." So the leaders of the Kolamites and the leaders of Bnei Israel met to seal a covenant in the valley of the Kolamites by the lands that are wet. And so it was, on the 11th day of the 7th month, after the locking of the gates on the Day of Atonement, that Bnei Israel departed their home at the path of green and the lake of walnuts with a mixture of joy and sadness. With only their personal belongings, their Torah scrolls, their sidders, and their taluses, they began a journey to the valley in the west, the land of the Kolamites. Because they did not have time to prepare food for the journey, they ordered lattes to go from the inn of Star and Buck. And that is why Bnei Israel continue to drink lattes from Star and Buck to this day. Bnei Israel arrived at the light by the town of Farming. Behold, it was green. Bnei Israel crossed the path in safety and praised the Lord. After 40 minutes and 40 seconds, Bnei Israel arrived in the valley and saw the place from afar. They walked together. They were full of nervous expectation. How might they be greeted? The Kolamiites went out with cymbals, song, and dance, with chaste hugs and kisses. Bnei Israel bowed low and thanked God for their helping with this difficult journey and its success. Their new home provided them with consolation for their loss of their beloved first home. For nearly 10 years, Bnei Israel has been living in peace with their neighbors, the Kolamiites, in their new house of God. Frank, Linda, Jeffrey, and the elders of the community continue to be honored for encouraging the people to walk on the path of God. For 4 years, Bnei Israel were led by Jonathan from the tribe of charred beef patties. And for 3 years, they were led by Mark from the family of birds with red breasts. Both men of the East, where Democrats live in great numbers. The newest leader is Mitch from the tribe of those who reside in parks, from the peoples of the North, the land where snow falls, beer flows freely, and the men fight on ice with sticks and pucks. The first of the elders at that time were Joanna, the lady of the lake, and Robert, he who renews that which is forsaken. God endowed them with knowledge and understanding. Every year, at the turn of the season, Bnei Israel mark their journey and their arrival in the land of the Kolamiites with a Chag, a day of great assembly. They gather in their thousands, their hundreds, their tens. In celebration, they joyfully slaughter chickens of the sea, share slices of the designated cake of 7 layers, consume the prerequisite 1 ounce of wine in plastic cups, and the coffee beverage at the ritual table set aside, all according to the practices of the people of Israel. And it happened, after these things, that a great dread and a plague befell the land. Bnei Israel and the members of the surrounding nations could not leave their dwellings. They could not work their fields. One could not visit his neighbor. Cleansing oils were in short supply, and their house in the valley remained empty. The Kolamiites suffered as well. The people were desolate. Because it was such a heavy burden, they took to calling the plague COVID, which means heavy in the tongue of the Hebrews. The cries of the people reached the heavens. God heard their pleas and sent them the healer, Fauci, a humble man and wise. From his place of authority, he delivered the 4 commandments. Cover your nose and mouth. Maintain a social distance of 4 cubits. Separate yourselves from the camp in a harem for 14 days as necessary. And, most important of all, love your neighbor as yourself, and remember, Kol Yisrael Arevim Ze Bazeh. All Israel is responsible for one another. Some heeded the words of the Master. Some did not. Zoom, the voice from the cloud, was a source of comfort and learning for many. Its messages were conveyed on the tablets of the people. On the 10th day of the 10th month of the plague, a new hope was proclaimed. The names of Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and the brothers Johnson were spread among the afflicted nations. Their ways were pointed. Hence the origin of the expression, with an outstretched arm, I am removed you from the clutches of COVID. Bnei Israel were soon to proclaim next year again in the valley of the Kolamiites. In the course of time, Mitch from the north followed the ways of those leaders before him and stepped aside to join his kin and embark on new journeys to distant places which he would be shown. Michael of the mountain, a native of the Middle Lands, the lands of the plains, grains, and Republicans, was next chosen to lead the people. May he be strong and of good courage. Cheryl, the lender of shekels, joined Joanna on the council of elders. These and other tales are recorded in the annals of the leaders of the tribe, and Bnei Israel continue to grow strong, prosper, and multiply.